I appreciate the invitation to be here today. It's my pleasure to be back in the Republic of Korea and my honor to be here at the Sejong Institute. This is my first visit back to Korea since I retired from the U.S. Army in January, and much has happened between that time. The times we are living in are dynamic and historical, and I would encourage all of you to remain connected, tightening our relationships and continuing to build trust. In times like these, those relationships are absolutely vital. In fact, they're foundational to our national security. And they are a centerpiece that help our combined U.S. and ROK forces advance our national interests and the goals of our people. These relationships are often what we turn to when frictions happen, as they do from time to time. And that mutual trust can be very useful and provide an off-ramp or even create or regain stability and peace when the rhetoric becomes a noisy distraction. These remarks are about gaining and maintaining positional advantage in the Indo-Pacific. And what does that mean here on the Korean Peninsula? So what do I mean by positional advantage? First of all, this is the only location on the Asian continent where the United States has a permanent formation led by a 4-star general, led by a 3-star general, led by a 2-star general, other general officers, and subordinates. That is an incredibly important point. This is the only location on the Asian continent. But positional advantage in military terms means achieving a favorable location or conditions that grant commanders or forces three things: freedom of action, enhances combat power, the collective combat power of those formations, and it influences your enemy. So let me begin by stating two contextual points that I feel are wrapped around almost every issue you see being discussed, certainly in the United States and globally. First point, the United States has a $36 trillion debt. $36 trillion debt. And when our 47th president, President Trump, a renowned businessman, became the commander-in-chief, and he sees a U.S. balance sheet out of whack, he was going to take action. He sees the American citizens as his customers and his responsibility. In fact, the American people elected him to return the business of America to a profitable one. Second point, and this goes to his customers, the American people who elected him. Everything that President Trump is doing, he campaigned on. So when people, leaders, media, think tanks, and others name and shame and criticize him and his approaches, it really resonates like a criticism of the American people who actually voted for him. Now, with that as a backdrop, I'm going to talk about 6 major efforts that are underway in the United States and globally, and these undoubtedly will have impacts here in South Korea, but also in the region and across the globe. These are numerous combinations of economic, diplomatic, security, and information approaches that have far-reaching domestic, but also foreign policy impacts, and I feel that they need to be understood. Number 1, and it was mentioned on the panel here, stop the war, stop the killing in the Middle East. Broker a deal. If you recall, Trump 1.0, he had the Abrams Accord. Think of this as trying to create an Abrams Accord 2.0. I don't know what the contours of that look like, but as you can see, we have a limited regional war going on in the Middle East, and he wants that killing to stop. Second point, stop the war, stop the killing and the fighting in Europe between Ukraine and Russia. Again, that was touched on in the panel here. I won't go into any more great detail. Third thing, he's sealing the U.S. border and he's removing illegal aliens. And as a reminder, we lose more than 125,000 Americans a year to the drug of fentanyl. So there is a killing going on as a result of the border crossings, where you have illicit human trafficking, illicit money laundering, and then, of course, illicit narcotics being injected into the U.S. population. The fourth thing, the Stargate Initiative. This was a Day 2 executive order that the President signed, and it talks about the United States being the AI capital of the world. The fifth thing, deploying tariffs globally. This is both a domestic and a foreign policy tool, and obviously today you're hearing about it from the United States. I want to make a couple of points on these tariffs, though. First of all, it's coupled with deregulations inside the United States and also bringing manufacturing back to the United States. So it's the tool of tariffs being able to return manufacturing capability and capacity to the United States while at the same time deregulating. And I read an article yesterday that hinted that already there's nearly $2 trillion of investment that's been brought back into the United States. You can see a range of companies making those investments. Some of those are announced promises and others are potential promises. And then the sixth thing, and this is mostly an internal U.S. thing, but you've heard of Elon Musk and Doge. That sixth effort is to really shrink the federal government, harvest the savings back so that those savings can go back to the taxpayer. That's my interpretation of what is actually happening with the Doge effort with Elon Musk. The fact of the matter is they're opening up the books of the United States, all of the departments, and they're looking into those books and they're making decisions about how to return those savings or harvesting those resources and the means back to the American taxpayer. So what does all this mean to the future of the ROC and U.S. alliance? Well, as mentioned in my panel, I've outlined some of my thoughts, and for those that heard those points, I'm happy to revisit any of them. However, I'd like to point out the following, that there is no substitute for being operationally positioned with hard power forward in this region. You must be present to compete. You must be present to campaign, and you have to gain positional advantage, and I'm talking about a combination of formations, command and control capabilities and systems, sustainment and logistics, intelligence collection, protection and defend capabilities for both the U.S. and ROC formations. It's also a combination of training, exercises, so that our forces and our commanders can conduct a series of rehearsals, and those rehearsals are the very means by which these formations learn how to do their profession of warfighting. And that is the very bedrock of a safe and secure and stable security environment. And it allows for the collective protection and defense and response in the event of a crisis. Now, I would contend that right now, we are operationally out of position. And I would say that is across the Indo-Pacific and even here in the Republic of Korea. Don't take that as a criticism. That goes along with my thinking that I offered in the panel. The threats have changed, the conditions have changed, therefore the alliance needs to change. And the time has come as a surprise, and this may be a surprise, the time has come that we need to take a look at the 28.5 that are stationed here in Korea, not necessarily the number, but the type of formations that we have, the capabilities that 28.5 represent. Again, the threats have changed, the environment has changed, the conditions have changed. Therefore, it is time to review the 28.5 that we have here, because we are deploying and creating new capabilities, and I believe those new capabilities need to be part of the discussion between the United States and the Republic of Korea of the capabilities that are need to be present here in Korea. So let me point out 7 real and I believe urgent problems with North Korea and China, and I want this to be a bit of a backdrop to the combination and the type of forces that need to be reviewed to be brought here. First, both North Korea and China have a robust and maturing nuclear weapons capability with known expertise in missile delivery, all arrayed in multiple locations with unknown command and control nodes and uncertain launch protocols. Both are fully capable of striking any regional target while also developing even longer range capabilities. Secondly, North Korea has a vast number and an unknown disposition of underground facilities that hide all manners of military activities, both WMD related and conventional. Third, the terrain here is rugged. It's bitterly cold in the winter, it's suffocatingly humid in the summer, and its dense urban sprawl makes this an incredibly challenging environment for military forces. Fourth, the population in North Korea is isolated, it's sick, it's starving, it's ideologically distorted, and they may be indifferent towards a foreign army, and it would not be prudent to assume that they will be friendly. Fifth, KJU has one purpose: the retention of sole authority. There is no such thing as a negotiated settlement because he's leading a state that is a terror mafia-like organization. And sixth, the military class within North Korea, and I would also say China, is ignorant of the outside world and completely wedded to the regime. They are literally bred and raised to fight, and we must assume that they will. No prudent military planner would assume they are not. And finally, China. We must assume that the PLA will move aggressively to take territory and fill any power vacuum that emerges in a crisis or a conflict. China does not want a Western-oriented state to appear on its southern flank. There are many permeations to the range of political outcomes, but the rock seizure of North Korea and complete reunification of the PEN is nearly impossible to imagine because that is the worst outcome for China. And China has the means to prevent it, and we should assume that they will work to try to prevent it. So what do we do about it? Well, here are 3 suggestions. First, we need to increase our U.S. ROC operational reach both here in the Republic of Korea and across the region. While we have made some gains in training and conducting more multinational exercises on PEN, we still have a great deal of improvements we need to strive for off PEN and in the region. We need to have ROC forces become more visible in the region. We need the United States and ROC political and military leaders to agree to take some assets off PEN and deploy them in the region more broadly. This alone would send a great message to not only the region, but about your protection capabilities. It would also replace ROC forces in more prominent way, or place ROC forces in more prominent ways as a regional leader versus just being concerned with security on the peninsula. Secondly, nuclear weapons and a WMD elimination joint task force. This is why we care so much about North Korea, and because they have nukes and we're going to have to counter them. And an aging but industrial scale chemical capability, most likely a dangerous bio program. North Korea is very different and it must be treated seriously. We must focus on WMD elimination and train for it. This is a direct set of tasks for our militaries. They have both major policy and major military implications, and we need to think about them before the problem happens. The objective is to get to and secure those WMD locations, and we need a dedicated combined joint task force component and commanders and forces coupled together with special operations forces, tactical air, and some strike, and we must focus on this mission. They need specialized training and equipment, and in my estimation, at least 2 ROC divisions are going to need to be part of that combined joint task force. The rest of the contours of that formation I'll leave to the people in uniform today. Thirdly, we have to develop a defense in depth, especially for Seoul. This means an updated plan that has layers, is robust, has forward positioning, and has built-in ready counterfire capabilities. A combined U.S. and ROC multi-domain task force operating in all-domain strike that would complement the combined joint task force WMD elimination. Again, the ROC forces should own the primary ground tactical defense. The U.S. could provide the joint fires, and with the arrival of additional theater and CONUS-based forces, we could lead combined arms formations to seize and secure objectives in the event of a crisis. I'll wrap up by saying I thank you very much for your support to the alliance. The alliance between the United States and the ROC is incredibly important. And as I said, and I remind those as I go and speak across the region, this is the one location on the Asian peninsula, or on the Asian continent, that the United States has with a combined formations. No other formation in at least the U.S. inventory is together in a formation with ROC and U.S. soldiers than United States Forces Korea, 8th Field Army, 2nd Infantry Division, and all of those formations together. That did not happen overnight. That took 70+ years to create, and we should do everything within our capabilities and everything within our power to make sure that that maintains the safety, security, and secures the freedoms and prosperity of both the ROC people and government, but also the United States and the region. Thank you very much, and I appreciate again so much from the Sejong Institute.